Fans always think they know what fans want. Because they're fans, why wouldn't they? So when opportunities arise for them to take up the tools to tweak and tinker with the games and franchises they're so passionate about, it seems like that should succeed more than it fails. And when it comes to modding, I'd say that it does. Modders are frequently lauded and depended upon for fixing bugs developers either couldn't find or couldn't be bothered to address. In the past, modders were vilified as cheaters mostly, hackers, altering games' code to get unfair advantages in online play, for instance, with far less of a spotlight being shown on the ones who made quality of life improvements available for public consumption, so people could enhance their own experiences without infringing on the enjoyment of others. As a primarily console gamer, I know next to nothing about mods, but what I have experienced with games like Fallout 4 and Skyrim proves that the general public is 10 times better at fixing and improving Bethesda's games than Bethesda is, at least. But modders have an advantage in that regard, because all they have to worry about is modding. They don't have an entire game to babysit. Mods like DSFix for Dark Souls make developers look like lazy bums for not having that shit in the game to begin with, but it's so much easier to expand upon an existing project than to create something from the ground up, which is further evidenced by the usually dubious quality of fan-made games. Pokemon is probably the most attempted franchise for fanboy dev wannabes with stars in their eyes. More than most, it's a franchise where everybody thinks they have great ideas on how to improve it. Why don't we have a Pokemon game like this? And how have they not added this thing yet? But while they get lost in their conceptual brainstorming of mechanics and plot, they fail to realize they never have what it takes to capture the heart of the franchise. I don't know if you've ever played a fan-made game before, but it's always very obvious right from the start that it is a fan-made game because a few people with a couple years of programming experience falsely think they can rival the turnout of an international company. It never feels right. It's a foreign gaming experience, like seeing a knockoff Pikachu plushie in a gift shop. It's familiar, but it's all wrong. As hard as they try to ape what made the real game so great, there's always piercing rays of the budding developer's own signature ill-fitting light shining through, and it's disheartening to see when you're trying to convince yourself that this is a legitimate experience so you won't feel dirty playing it. And look, I conceptualized almost a whole damn Pokemon game myself back in the day, as I've said before, so I get the drive and the urge to make your thoughts a reality, but even if I had the means to make my own game, I would rather just get hired as a creative liaison at Game Freak or something and filter my ideas through the authentic channels. That way it can be done right. You can Google image search fan-made Pokemon designs, some of them are terrific, and Game Freak's own designs aren't always iconically signature. When Sylveon was first unofficially leaked/revealed as the Japanese Ninfia, I was like, this shit is fake. Look at the eyes, those aren't Pokemon eyes, get out of here. That was even before we knew the fairy type was going to be a thing, so imagine our surprise when that bombshell got dropped on us too. But eventually we grew to love the new additions, as we always do if we're not being stuck-up snobs for no reason. Despite that, a company's handling of its own IP always has a stamp of authenticity about it. Just look at what happens whenever a developer hands a franchise over to someone else. It takes a nosedive. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, I'm talking about the PS2 sequels, not the remasters, though more on that later. Ratchet & Clank, Little Big Planet. Call of Duty started with Infinity Ward, who brought the series to popularity from humble beginnings. Then they brought in Treyarch to cycle in their contributions, which I think they're arguably better at making COD games than Infinity Ward is. And then later they brought Sledgehammer Games into the fold, who have been responsible for all the worst entries of the last 7 years, so with few exceptions, handoffs generally don't end well. Because you can't copy a developer's essence. It's hard to find inspiration when you're just tracing a blueprint. Take the Crash remaster, even, for instance. Vicarious Visions remastered Crash Bandicoot himself and made the character look like a furry pervert Five Nights at Freddy's monster, and then they went and fucked up every environmental hitbox they could find. The game still ended up being fun, but they were so concerned with creating a shot-for-shot remake, literally the dimensions and grid space and distances are identical. They, I guess, didn't have the freedom to fix the phantom range of their fucking fire traps. I'm not sure my point carries through that, but I wanted to talk about it anyway because it frustrates me to this day. Or when Sumo Digital took over Little Big Planet from Media Molecule and made LBP3 and had clearly never facilitated an online game before, so the multiplayer servers were unplayably laggy for months. What a disaster. That's happening like all the time now, it seems. When was the last time a multiplayer game launched without an error code? COD World War II shit the bed so hard they had to remove the connectivity of the entire hub world. That's like if Destiny had to bring the tower offline. Rainbow Six Siege launched terribly. Dragon Ball FighterZ wouldn't let you join ring games with friends for the first few days. I can't believe Monster Hunter World got off scot-free. That online should have been ripe with bugs. I mean, joining games with friends was needlessly, stupidly restrictive, but that's how the game was designed on purpose. But that's the time we live in, where we're surprised games work properly from the start. State of Decay 2 just released a 20 gig patch fixing a bunch of the major problems it released with, something the first State of Decay was also known for because you can't teach an old dog new tricks until you've already sent it to the pound? So why the issues? No, I'm asking, because I don't know. I don't know why all the open and closed betas in the world can't prepare a game for the wild. I don't know why companies set apparently unrealistic release dates and then uphold them in the face of brokenness. It's not an inflated sense of entitlement to expect a game to work at launch. The absolute bare minimum you can assure your audience is that your game functions as intended. Look at all these whiners on the internet complaining about the servers going down. What do they expect from us? Accountability? How about serviceability? We can start with that. By the way, no reviewer should be expected to update their score on a game as patches are rolled out and shit gets fixed. You think your product is fit to be released to the public? Journalists are going to judge you by that decision. Live with it. You're only as good as your launch, as far as your relationship with consumers, because you should have respected them enough to deliver them a quality product from the start. Skyrim is still bug-ridden across several different platforms. It released on PS3 and 360, buggy. It eventually came to the current generation, and Bethesda proved they're super good at remastering bugs. It went to VR and somehow ended up with even more bugs. Some developers do not give a shit about bugs, and why should they if they're getting Game of the Year across the board anyway? Main quests can fail to trigger, rendering the game unfinishable. NPCs can disappear, the game freezes not infrequently, side quests can misbehave, still Game of the Year. Why fix bugs? I maintain that Batman Arkham City should have beat the shit out of Skyrim for Game of the Year that year, and it did score-wise, review-wise overall, but still, people were like, oh, but Skyrim is so big though. You hardly notice the game-breaking bugs when you look at how big it is. Oh well. Game of the Year lost its notoriety when they gave it to a goddamn expansion. Screw that shit. Speaking of shit, it's very late at night right now, but I'm still going to keep typing. That reminds me, Bluehole and PUBG are moving forward with the lawsuit against Epic Games and Fortnite. In Korean courts specifically, that is a dirty, swamp-ass move, because Bluehole is a Korean company, so they take the lawsuit to Korean court and hope the general anti-Western sentiment of the climate is enough to glue their shitty case together. They wouldn't have a frying pan of a chance in an American court, and they know it. I consider this a loud and clear admission of defeat. Them having to be all subversive and sneaky about it. Like, seriously, Bluehole, I would stop shitting on you forever if you would just publicly admit that you're engaging in bullshit tactics because you know you can't win directly, and you know you don't actually deserve this. Just say, hi, my name is Bluehole, and I got mad that their Battle Royale pummeled our Battle Royale into the dirt, and that later Black Ops 4's Battle Royale game is gonna bury us 6 feet under the ground with no funeral, so I decided to initiate a spurious and bogus lawsuit for attention, seeking damages there is no way I'm logically owed, just to squander any remaining goodwill I had with the low, very low amount of Battlegrounds loyalists we do have left, and shine a spotlight on our legal ineptitude so maybe people would pity us into buying a $30 game they can play a much more inspired version of for free. At least Battlegrounds has a new map though. I'm on the edge of my seat wondering how the red and blue shipping containers are arranged in that fucking shit. H1Z1 sucks too, by the way. I played it on PS4. Isn't that game supposed to have zombies? I played 3 rounds, I didn't see a single one. The cool thing about re-releasing H1Z1 now is that it's even worse than Battlegrounds, so PS4 exclusive owners who've never been able to play Battlegrounds can be like, is this shit supposed to be better than Battlegrounds? No wonder everyone plays Fortnite. If I may speak directly to Mr. Player Unknown for a second, your 15 minutes of fame is about done. You made an early access game, and it was a phenomenon. People foamed at the mouth over it for months. It broke all the records. It even got nominated for Game of the Year despite not being fucking finished, somehow having the gall to stand next to Super Mario Odyssey and the like. You were on top of the world. Then you put loot boxes in it before you even finished it after you promised you would not do that. You had it out with a popular streamer on Twitter for triggering your emotional PTSD and subsequently banned him from your game. You banned hundreds of innocent accounts that were falsely reported for cheating. You released the game on Xbox One with a more garbage than usual performance and frame rate. Fortnite came out, people started flocking to a free game that was doing everything you were doing but better with way more original stuff to boot, and now we're here, where the clock is about to strike 12 on your carriage before it turns back into a gourd, and you'll go out with a fizzle underneath a pile of legal fees stemming from a soon-to-be failed lawsuit. If that shit doesn't fail, it's the end. It'll be the biggest blunder in games history. Even if you win the lawsuit, you will be so fucking hated and despised. PUBG is literally pre-election Trump right now. Most people are like, oh my god, what a tool, there's no way he'll win. But boy, would the wake-up call be swift and mighty if he did. People sputtering and crying, it's the end of the world. Lesbians and Mexicans won't feel safe if Bluehole wins this lawsuit. They will make American Horror Story Season 9 about this lawsuit. Well, that's going to do it for this mostly incoherent episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.